What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and as always, it's my continuing mission to bring you videos that aren't 2 minutes long and filled with sponsored bullcrap. Today, we're going to take a look at the Wayback Machine. We're going to jump into a backwards compatible game that has now had an Xbox X enhancement, which of course is the Wily West simulator known as Red Dead Redemption. This is a title that in the last couple days people have been asking about because there was a rumor that it was going to be an enhanced title. It is now an Xbox enhanced title. What does that mean, and what do those adjustments really end up showing when you play the title? We're going to cover all that. So the first thing I want to talk about is what's the difference between a backwards compatible game and an enhanced game. Well, the enhanced actually does describe exactly what's occurring here. With the Xbox backwards compatible titles, what you have is the Xbox X having a program within it and the Xbox S and the Xbox original that mimics a 360. In fact, the software inside thinks it is a physical 360, which has actually caused them issues in the past. To get it backwards compatible, they basically go in there, they adjust the emulator, and they get that game running as best as they can. Now, sometimes we've seen improvements on the original Xbox as well as the Xbox S and the Xbox X just from getting it backwards compatible. Sometimes you see a little bit of a jump in frame rate here or there, depending on the game. What does enhanced mean? Enhanced does actually mean that they've gone in, Microsoft has, and adjusted some things. Now, the first thing we need to understand is they have to get publisher permission to do this. They go in, they adjust stuff, but this is not something where the publisher is giving them brand new data, different detailed textures or anything like that. It really is Microsoft going in and getting this running on the Xbox and enhancing it, utilizing the hardware within the X itself. What does that mean for Red Dead? Well, it means native 4K. It means the same frame rate, but it also means a drastic improvement in clarity and filtering, which is something that you'll see here. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a 360 anymore. Mine's being repaired, so I can't show you a like for like video, but you can see those all over the net right now. There's different YouTubers who are putting those up. There's different screenshots so you can see, but I just wanted to discuss how it is as an experience and if it's improved. One of the things that's always difficult to understand is that enhanced really doesn't mean there's any changes to the gameplay unless those enhancements adjust it, make it smoother, or unfortunately make it worse. I am happy to say that the 4K native resolution helps in various different ways. The first is enemy recognition at a distance. You can now see enemies at a farther distance. That 4K resolution really helps with recognition. It helps with identifying them from the rocks around them and the various different flora and fauna. That's something you notice almost right away. Another thing that's noticeable right away is the clarity due to that improved filtering. And what you get is this ability to follow trails, the ability to follow the roads a little bit easier. This is something that really doesn't come up in the native game originally. You do notice it when you're traveling. There's just a clarity there. It's a little easier to plan out where you're going because things don't just mend off into cottage cheese vision in the far distance. Now, when it comes to frame rate, what do we see? Well, I did see a couple little bumps here and there, but overall it is very solid at its original frame rate, which is 30. This is not a 60 FPS game. It is a 30 FPS game from back in the Wayback Machine, so do not think that it's going to suddenly double its frame rate. Because I'm telling you right now, walking through the different towns and seeing the different locations at this higher fidelity is really one of those moments when you realize just how nice it is to have hardware that can do this, just like any of us who have a PC and an emulator and you go back and you emulate those older games. One thing I did notice with the Xbox S originally was that when it was made backwards compatible, there were a couple issues with frame rate that popped up that I certainly remember from the 360, but in fact, in some ways it seemed a little worse on the Xbox One, or there was something just slightly off about the frame rate at times. I'm not 100% sure why that was. But when it comes to the X now, you have an increased and smoother frame rate. You have something that really does allow you to engage in that fiction a little bit easier. Red Dead was always a looker when it came to its environments, was always a looker when it came to the way in which it detailed out its fiction for this unique landscape that we don't see in a lot of other titles, and they really nail it with that increased resolution. It is super noticeable. Now, a lot of people have asked me if this changes the foliage distance draw out, which sometimes when that's connected to the CPU, you can see an increase, especially when you get just a backwards compatible title. I cannot honestly say I noticed much of a difference. There's still some pop in. There's of course still some shimmering because the anti-aliasing system that the game engine itself is using isn't really the greatest for shimmering artifacts and anti-aliasing. really doesn't matter. The game had a pretty good draw distance already. You do see a little bit of pop in here and there, but this is one of those titles that it's so nice to see backwards compatible. It's not one of those titles where you have to go out and you have to buy a remaster. There is no remaster for this. It is free, 500 megabyte update, and to be brutally honest, in some ways looks better than some remasters we've got. So that's it for me. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike it, give it a thumbs down. Maybe check out Twitter or become a patron on the Patreon website, which allows me to do these kind of videos, allows me to do reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. And as always, every video game that I cover, I buy a copy, regardless if a developer gives me a code. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.
Another poker player.
It'd be my pleasure.
Jacob Austin is said to be having relations with Mrs. Winston.
Richard Jarn, I ain't thief.